Pope Benedict XVI's resignation shocked the world, but maybe not just everyone in the world. A Vatican spokesman acknowledged that after a series of health mishaps, Benedict's post-papal housing had been under construction since at least the fall. This begs the question, just how many people knew of his decision to retire? Joining us to discuss this is Reverend Paul Rauschenbusch, HuffPost Senior Religion Editor. So, Paul, the Vatican secrecy, right, is legendary, and this seems to take it to a whole new level here.
Well, I think it was interesting as it kind of unfolded throughout the week. More and more people started realizing, oh, they knew this. I mean, the first time I heard that there was an actual residency under construction, something clicked. I was like, oh, this is not a surprise to everybody. There's been people who have known about this, and then it came out that the Pope had actually fell and hit his head very badly, bled profusely in Mexico when he was there on that visit.
Last March, I think that was?
That's right. Yeah. And then also that it was revealed that he had a pacemaker, that recently there was another surgery to change the battery. So a lot had been going on that we had never heard about. And so this kind of all of a sudden the Pope decided and everybody else is scrambling. It's kind of one of those stories that as the week unfolds, they had to keep on saying, well, actually. And so now we're really, I think we've gotten the broad picture. There's some people who are still looking for the scandal, but I don't think that's really the case. I think this is an intentional decision made by Pope Benedict that he didn't want to have the public sort of deterioration that the last Pope faced. He wanted to go out with mental capacity strong, and now he's basically saying, I'm going to leave and I'm going to be hidden from view. He's going to be cloistered essentially for a life of prayer.
Yeah, and NT, Benedict's retirement home, if you'll call it that, was being built without any of us knowing. But NT is gone, but his smile looked wonderful. So Betty, there he is. There he is. Hey, NT.
Sorry.
Did you just go to your own cloisters there? Are you retiring from the HuffPost Live community?
I didn't like the question. I was like, let me disappear for a bit.
And what is the scandal that caused your absence there? No, but let's.
Yeah, exactly.
The Vatican kept John Paul II's Parkinson's very much an open secret. They didn't acknowledge it until he died, right? So this is something that is of course, was expected from the seat of the Catholic Church.
I think that's right. But actually, it isn't that unusual just in general. I think that there were claims that potentially Ronald Reagan was suffering a little bit from Alzheimer's, at the end, and they kept that. We see what's happening with Hugo Chavez. So anyone who's responsible for, whether it's in the political realm, in this case, I think it's even more significant because it's souls, right? Technically, if you put the Pope in the context of the United States, he served 2 terms, roughly. At that point in time, you get to take a step back and move on. You have 1 billion souls.
No.
I'm sorry. Let me finish. Hold on one second. You have 1 billion souls, and you tend not to think about the person who's supposed to be in direct communication with God as being frail from that perspective. So, I think that it happens in political circles. It certainly happens in religious circles, and I think he took a very sort of daring step in doing this because there is no retirement age for a pope. That's my perspective.
Oh boy, Julia.
I got to tell you, when he was named, there was so much controversy about his ex-past as a Nazi youth, and he never seemed to me someone who connected with his people on a soul level. And so, frankly, I think he's a disappointment. And you mentioned Hugo Chavez, you mentioned Fidel Castro. Any regime that keeps secrets is, sort of creating their own demise from day one. And so frankly...
Doesn't every regime, in its sense, keep secrets, though?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's, of course, the greater problem.
The papacy is famous for keeping secrets. I would not say, I think it's probably wrong to say, at least for many devoted Catholics, they feel very strongly that Pope Benedict was a good pope. They think that he fulfilled and continued the legacy of the previous pope. So I think there's a lot of criticism of this pope from outside the church, not as much from inside, although I've heard a
me.
lot of it on Huffington Post. I think I have my own criticisms, but I think it's wrong to say that to kind of imply that this is an unpopular pope within the Catholic. I think what's interesting now, and what we're going to see. What we're going to see as going forward is there's some controversy because you have a living pope and then you have an ex-pope, Pope Emeritus, and then you'll have an actual pope who will be reigning, and they're going to share an assistant.
Right, and this reminds me of something that we also heard. Julia, we'll come right back to you, I promise. But also in the news today, right, the Pope announced that he intends to live, quote, hidden from the world after he retires. So how are people reacting? First I want to go to you, Julia, because you got that furrowed brow, you're shaking your head. This idea of going hidden from the world so you can let another pope move forward.
Isn't that a little dramatic? Isn't that a little heady? And doesn't that sort of liken back to his leadership style, which was very sort of on the mountaintop? And I really think that the next pope needs to be somebody more like Mother Teresa, who's in the streets and helping people heal.
Because they're not going to make a female pope anytime soon.
I'm talking about heart. I'm not talking about gender.
But John Paul II was that, right? And he was
exactly. That was my point.
He was appointed early. He had a big cult of personality, and Benedict seemed to be a response to that. They wanted someone who wouldn't serve as long and someone who was perhaps a little headier. But so Betty, and the Pope's now saying, "I'm going to hang back. I'm going to retire quietly." Do you think he is leaving room for that other kind of pope?
I think he actually will pretty much disappear from view. I mean, I'm a little disturbed that he's kicking the cloistered nuns out of their space in order to retire there. But the church and its treatment of nuns has not always been that great either. But I think he'll probably disappear from view. I mean, for all its secrecy, the papacy is pretty powerful, and I think the new pope will reign supreme.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
I think
that new pope that's going to reign supreme. Who's that going to be?
Well, we don't know who the new pope will be, but one thing that is causing some raised eyebrows is that the current secretary of Pope Benedict will continue to serve as the head of the papal household.
Personal secretary.
So, so this is a fellow who's Cardinal. I'm blank. His name is George. He was just recently profiled in Vanity Fair, by the way. He's a very attractive cardinal, and he's going to be in both places, which is So there's going to be some communication. We don't know. There's a lot of intrigue, of course. A little Dan Brown. I mean, it is the Vatican, but I think we can trust that. I think that Pope Benedict and future. I actually think it'll be interesting. What do we call him? Because will he go back to Cardinal Ratzinger? I don't even know what we'll call him. But he will disappear. He will not be speaking in public anytime after the new pope comes, and he will disappear. My feeling is, and the last time I watched the Ash Wednesday Mass, he looked really frail. I mean, I really think that I'm not sure.
That's why he's retiring.
I'm
right?
not sure how long he's going to be able to be in the public view.
And Julia, because you're so engaged, I want to go back to you one more time. The next pope, right? You're from New York. Do you think we're going to see Cardinal Egan going up to be?
You know what? I don't think, frankly, a U.S. person is ever going to be pope, let alone a New Yorker, unfortunately, because they can't deal with the truth. But to be honest, as a rape victim, I just think it's time to really own up to the pedophilia problem that this church has had. And if Ratzinger was part of that, then good riddance, and let the next person care more about the children and open up the doors and stop the secrecy.
Well, Paul, I want to thank you for joining.
As pleasure as always.
Always good to have you down here, especially with all the Pope news.
Yeah.
And community, stick with us. We have more coming right up.